When we're out here in front of the United Nations, why was it so important to you to address this delegation now in the midst of them, in the final stages of drafting this treaty?
Jenny, a message needed to be delivered, and I was proud to deliver it today on behalf of gun owners all over the United States of America, that we are not going to allow a foreign body to come into our country and eliminate our constitutional right to own a firearm in the United States.
I've got to ask you, what did it feel like? You talk about foreign governments, looking out in that audience, seeing delegates from Libya, South Africa, all of these countries that want to tell America what we need to do with our firearms have no appreciation or understanding for our Second Amendment. For you, how did that feel?
Well, it felt otherworldly, to tell you the truth. I mean, I'm sitting up there and I'm looking out, and there I see the Sudan, and I see Cuba, and I see Syria, and I'm thinking, you gotta be kidding me. You're gonna come into our country and you're gonna try to eliminate our constitutional right to own a firearm? Dream on. We Americans are not gonna let that happen, and I promise you the National Rifle Association is not gonna let that happen. And that's why I was here today giving voice to what every single one of our members around the good old USA would want to say if they were here today.
And yet, just this morning, you had Mexico leading the charge. I mean, you stood there and said, no civilian arms in this treaty, not hunting, not sporting rifles, and yet you had Mexico standing there this morning saying, you know what? Hunting and sporting rifles need to be in this treaty, no exceptions, because you know what? Those are the kinds of guns the cartels are using.
I mean, the whole thing is ridiculous listening to these foreign countries. I mean, it makes no sense what they say. I mean, the fact is, the UN is not going to be there if someone breaks your glass in your house at 2 a.m. in the morning. I can guarantee you the baby blue helmets of the UN are not going to be there to save you. The United States of America is the only country in that building today with a Bill of Rights, a Constitution that has a Bill of Rights that is based on individual freedoms. That's our sovereign in the United States, not the government. Our country was built on individual freedoms all the way back to when we won freedom from King George. And we are not about to let the UN suddenly become our king. Our king in the United States, the individual freedoms that Americans possess under the Constitution of the United States, that's what separates the good old USA from every other country in the world.
What concerns you under this administration, the Obama administration, that has signed on in support of these negotiations going right on inside this building? And what are we at stake if, in fact, he gets reelected and his belief is that the UN should have more say over how America is run?
Well, I think all of that, if that ever happens, and we can't let it happen, is a critical step down the path of using our unique American way of losing our unique American way of life. I mean, we cannot let this theory, and there are folks in the Obama administration that agree with it, that in order to be a citizen of the world, Americans need to take a lesser level of freedom in order to fit into the world. I mean, we cannot and will not allow our Americans' freedoms to be dumbed down to some lesser standard that this body right here, the UN, wants to set.
Do you think you made an impact in there today? Do you think anybody was listening?
I hope I laid down a marker in the sand that if you're thinking about infecting the United States, almost like a disease, and dumbing down our freedoms that we have under the Bill of Rights to the Constitution to some lesser level, that's not going to happen. Dream on, forget it. We're Americans. We go all the way back to when we fought King George, and we're not going to let it happen.
So your message to gun owners after being in there, seeing what you saw?
My message to gun owners all over this country is they're serious about this. They've got millions and millions and millions of dollars. They got people like George Soros. They got international foundations. They have a lot of the international media. This is a serious effort to come into our country, the United States, and take away our freedoms, lessen our freedoms, take away our right of self-defense. And we can't let that happen as American citizens. The truth is, you look back in the last century, a lot of the killing that was done by governments that were sitting in there today. I mean, the fact is, government doesn't protect people. We're about individual freedom. And like I said, Ultimately, the Second Amendment is about individual freedom, self-destiny, and self-worth. And I'm proud to be here on behalf of the NRA today defending that.
All the years you've been in this fight, did you ever think you'd see yourself inside this building making the kind of statement you had to make today?
It's a sad commentary, the fact that I had to go in there today. And I hope as Americans we join together and we let not only our U.S. Congress, our Senate, our President, but we join together with a firm resolve that we are never going to let that body infect our freedoms. What separates our country from every other country in the world? The Bill of Rights, the Constitution. We have a unique freedom, unique in all of mankind. And believe me, I mean, I don't want the USA to look more like the planet. I want the planet to look more like the USA.